Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, Chad. Joining me as always is the glorious one himself, Marcus. Marcus, another week, another dollar. How the hell are you?
Yeah, man. Burr is the word. Not bird, burr. Cold as hell, but we persist anyway. More impact on.
They said that this winter storm we just got, and technically we're still getting a bit of it, went from the southeast Texas Mexican border all the way up to the main Canada border. That's wild. That is a long ass storm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The people listening. It's so bad they named it. I don't know when the last time they named a winter storm. Like it was a hurricane, but they named it. I forgot the name escapes me at this moment, but they actually gave it a name.
We're gonna call it Tallulah.
Uh,
That sounds like the name of a hooker. Tallulah is my mother's name. Oh, cool runnings. Will you ever stop being delightful? We are here for another edition, obviously. We are coming off the heels of a very good episode of TNA. Fantastic stuff. I know the live crowd wasn't really super hyped for the final segment. I thought it was brilliant. That was one of the better segments I'd seen in a long time. Um, them kicking out JDC, I thought was expected. I kind of thought that's what they would do. But then kicking out Moose while Alicia's screaming bloody murder, only for them to introduce Bear Bronson, which is a hell of a game. And then introduce Cedric Alexander. What a wild turn of events last week's episode of Impact did. Ratings stayed about the same. I think if the first episode was 173,000 or 173,000, I think this one did 171,000. And I think it did about the same key ratings demo. So, like, not bad. Not bad at all. Especially because I think this one will incentivize people to tune in for next week's episode even more so. Had a lot of great matches, but the big segment was the closing one. Moose now a face. Cedric Alexander now a heel. Bear Bronson, Brian Myers, Eddie now heels, and now squared up against their former captain. I'm curious to see how this goes about. There was a bit of a spoiler that kind of got reported that Eddie ended up getting the world title briefcase, which I think is the right call because I think Eddie and Santana could have a great feud together. So it looks like Eddie is now taking the lead dog role in the system, which I'm excited about. Marcus, what were your thoughts on this whole shebang?
I dug it. I dug it because it got rid of it trimmed fat ultimately, and really for as long as we've been watching Impact, uh, and it's been rough the last couple of years. I had its bright moments, but um, that outside of what they've been doing with Mike Santana and maybe the consistency of what they've done with the Elegance brand, that's been their most consistent storyline. Um, and the fact that with everything that we've seen, they paid it off like that. I thought that was one of the better points. Not that we ever really want to tip our hat at all to Delirious, because I mean that's the apropos word the way that he booked. But that's quality long form storytelling because for a while Moose has been kind of leaning more towards his better angels. He's not been wanting interference in his matches. Been wanting to do stuff straight up. He We saw the level of respect that he gave Leon Slater and how he dropped the title to him. Um, he's kind of just been, like I said, leaning more towards his better angel. There's some no, okay, yeah. So that makes perfect sense. JDC retired. He really wasn't too big of a hitter. Was never really one of my favorites, although he did bring something to the group. So We got that out the way. Did not expect Bear Bronson, but like you said, hell of a pick. And certainly didn't see Cedric Alexander, but he needs this is what he needed. He needed a new coat of paint. He was kind of just there. Obviously, somebody you could throw in a situation and deliver you a banger with anybody, but he needed something else. And this is really going to help that group. Also, speaking of long term storytelling, this is, and me and Chad know this specifically because of how long we've been watching. This is about the third or fourth time Eddie has switched up and done some stuff far left, and Alicia didn't know spit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been consistent as well. So I dig that. I mean, she always eventually gets on board, but some of her best stuff has been her reacting to the sudden switches in direction and character that he's made, and watching her adjustment to it. So I thought it was one of the best things they've done in a while. Like the way they paid it off. Now they just got to follow through with elevating them to another form of dominance because they, like I said, they've been one of the most consistent things that they've had in a lot of inconsistent roster changes and booking in general. So I dug it. I like it. Um, this gives Moose some new stuff to do. I don't know how much longer we're gonna have him. Um, in the ring, but he's certainly one of the company's MVP, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this takes him and the group. So kudos to them. Like you said, a lot of people didn't necessarily get it, but I think those that have been watching like you and me for a while and appreciate, like I said, long form storytelling. Um, this specifically hit for us, and they needed something like this coming off of really one of. I mean, I think you said it last week, but that was one of the worst wrestling shows I've ever watched on TV. And we've watched a lot of 3 hour Raw
Mm-hmm.
showing McMahon, and that's saying something. So they desperately need. I just wish. I feel like you go agree on this. I wish they could have gave this energy for the debut.
I agree. If this was the debut episode, I wouldn't have any real concerns about what's going on right now. One of the things I find fascinating about all this is when you look at, what we got on the American couldn't have been saved for Genesis. You know, the title, one of the biggest issues with, I think rightfully so, we're pointing out that was given away for free on an episode of Impact. Then we ran it back. Now, granted, the Texas Death Match was it was good. It's not anything I would be like, oh, you have to go. It's not gonna make 2026's year end, but I thought it was fine. That being said, if you just did all of this that we saw here last week, I think we have a whole new situation because it gives more weight to the triple threat. I think it gives more weight to the JDC Eddie Edwards match, and it makes everything feel so much more significant. This is part of the issue I had with Hunter Johnson and Tommy Dreamer as a booker. This would have been the perfect lead for Johnson. And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about, like, hey, what are we going to do, at Genesis, we did Eddie and Frankie, and all that stuff, with JDC and Eddie. It would have been, it just, instead we kind of got this half-ass situation last week. And, like, all in all, I think all in all, we just ended up getting a show that last week wasn't good. I know a lot of it had to do with the fact that there is a trend with TNA where they crown a new champion when they go to a new network. Jarrett with Spike TV, he had actually won it like the weekend before or what have you, but, they debuted the show with him as the new champion. You had for Destination America, you had Bobby Lashley. You had EC3 for Pop. So there's this idea that when they went to AMC, Brian Cage lost to Sami Callihan at Access. So obviously they wanted a big title change on the event, and with them not having the X Division title because Leon Slater was stuck in England, it kind of forced their hand, and I get that, but you could also have done the Knockouts Tag Title match as the big title switcheroo Or, and here's a thought, we could have taken the fucking belt off of Stacks because I don't think there's a goddamn fan in the world who's like, you know, I don't really give a shit about Mike Santana or the system or Danny Luna. I'm here for Stacks. If there's one of them, I will give you every dollar I have. It's not a lot of money, but I believe so wholeheartedly that there is no such thing as a Stacks / TNA fan that I'm willing to bet it all. I guarantee you that person does not exist. So I see this as a great step forward, but also I lament a little bit because this could have been the perfect lead-in show for AMC's debut and Genesis. And then coming out of it, we could have had so much unique fun. And instead, they dropped the ball. And I think almost retroactively, I'm getting mad because I know they're capable of putting on a good show. I know because like every single issue we had in terms of talent availability last week persisted into this week. So it wasn't not having Danny Luna build a gunslinger. It was just because they booked a terrible fucking show.
Yeah, real quick, and I know this is asking you to book on the fly, but if you go back through the card that you came up with in your mind for a second,
Mm-hmm.
where would you put this um final segment on your show? As the final segment, you bump something off. How do you place it?
On the show, I rebooked on the website realnerdcorp.com. Check it out. I would not have had this segment on if this was the idea for the story, right? I would have
Yeah,
rewritten the entire debut episode. I
yeah,
would have rewritten all of it. I would have ended with this segment. I wouldn't have had the world title segment. I would have had some of the other matches and whatnot. I would have had, but like I would have moved. Marcus, honestly, this was there's been over 1,000 episodes of Impact.
yeah.
I'll be judicious. This is probably a top 75 episode of the time that we got this past Thursday. It could be higher. I'm just I don't know. I don't remember every episode, so I'm being cautious. But let's just say for the sake of argument that this was what was presented to me. I would have ran with this. Like I don't think there was a segment on this show that wasn't at least mildly entertaining. And I think you could have ran with this as the premiere, and I wouldn't have changed the thing. It's not a perfect episode, but considering the limitations with the finances, the roster, and some of the things that they're trying to build towards, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I thought this was at its best, it was perfect. At its worst, it was good. That's hard to say about any wrestling show. I'm curious to see where this goes. I'm curious to see who takes the de facto spot as leader in the system. It looks like it's going to be Eddie, but it could be. Someone mentioned that it could be Cedric. I wonder who the tag team is
Yeah,
going to be.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that. There are a few people in all of that company who deserve to get back in that realm more than Eddie because they didn't do him right the last time. Didn't he? He took it off Tessa and then he dropped it to Erod, right?
Tessa vacated. Eddie won
Yeah,
the vacant
yeah,
match at
yeah.
Slammiversary, and then EY took it like 3 weeks later because, listen, and I said this before, and I'll say it again. Scott D'Amore is a better booker than Delirious. That does not make Scott D'Amore a good booker.
Yeah, that was a freaking that was just trash. So there are fewer people who, and he never really got back in that realm since. So he deserves that. He definitely also deserves to be the leader of yes, because he was the leader of Honor No More, but that
Mm-hmm.
didn't really get traction that it could have, and maybe that's actually what led more to a more better version of that, which is now the system. So maybe everything worked out there, but he got him back in that realm. Cedric, I could see him. I mean, it'd be cool if he get some X division business. Um, I mean, even though we've seen him get a shot or whatever, or maybe they have him tag with Bronson. Uh, in that regard, who knows? But this is some exciting stuff. Um, what little we have to be excited about. Speaking of, how did you feel about the commercial placement this week?
Better. significantly better. The week before, I've been watching it on Sling TV. For those who don't know, Sling TV is a digital cable network essentially, with some over the top or whatever they call it, OTC um, kind of elements. So like they do have some on demand stuff, but for the most part, it's live television. You get access to a bunch of channels, and I got it because I didn't realize that I could still watch it on Impact Plus or TNA Plus. So like, yeah, I was like, yeah, no, I'll get it. It turns out you can, and I'm like, oh, well, no waste of money. But I have been enjoying it for the most part, especially once I get the sports package back. That being said, the AMC stream broadcast, what have you, last week, for not last week, but the week before for the premiere, and I mean this with all sincerity, had double the amount of commercials that the normal broadcast would have had. We came back in the middle of matches. We came back as people were coming out after coming back from commercial break. It wasn't one of those where it was like a designed 30-second loop where we're like, hey, Eddie Edwards is here doing a promo and he's great. But right after these breaks, we're going to be jumping to the ring for another match. It was, hey, here's Eddie doing a promo. Then it goes to a commercial. And then we come back and, hey, look, the match is already ongoing because it wasn't supposed to go to commercial. We didn't have any of that this week. So I think they sorted that out, which I'm happy about. So this was a much better episode, and it's given me some more hope for what this company can do. And I'm hoping someone goes, oh yeah, Delirious and Tommy Dreamer are still doing this, but so and so's been at it. And if that's the case, good, good. The rest of the show, though, I thought it went off without a hitch. We had Moose versus Cedric to open up things. That was a fun little match. Cedric got the win. Uh, so they're building up Moose and Cedric, which I think will be a lot of fun. Mike Santana's promo was fantastic. I was watching it with my girl, and
Oh yeah.
she was like, "That was a really good interview." I'm like, "You're adorable." I'm like, "It's called a promo, babe," and she goes, "Baby, I barely care." I'm like, "Oh yeah, fair enough."
Oh, that's too cute. Yeah, but it's crazy because it really was it's one of his best, and he
Mm-hmm.
usually don't miss in general. But because he also had to he had, he said it without outright directing. He had to like address the crap booking that he got
Mm-hmm.
with the title switch, but he addressed everything. The lead up to his first title win, the flub of the first dropping the title, and then getting back to it. I thought it was great. I think he's ace on the mic. He's obviously, you know, one of their best in ring, and hopefully he gets the run that he deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was ace. And shout out to uh the missus for liking it as well. She knows quality.
She
Once
does know.
again,
She
proves
does.
she knows quality.
Now, what I will say is there's a way to pull the belt off of Santana, but I don't think you do it until Slammiversary, and I'll get to who it should be by in a little
Mm.
bit. Here's what I'll say about Indy and M. This may have been Indy's best match in TNA, but I also think it shows how good M by Elegance actually is, and how little they're actually letting her do. Because I think emphatically Indy Hartwell is a terrible wrestler. I know a lot of times like, oh, this is fake, so like you can't really be good or bad. It it really isn't though, and you can. If you're not a good enough athlete, you're not going to be good at this. And I don't feel like Indy is a good athlete. I think her stuff with NXT and specifically Dexter Loomis had people very amused by her. In they did good stuff, and hey, Loomis and cool.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, whatever value India's had is gone. And for her to get the match out of her that she did, you know, 2.5 stars tops. It's still 2 stars better than anything she's ever done in TNA. So like a good
Yeah,
step forward and hope for it. Yeah, but we'll see.
yeah. It's funny when people make that argument because then they'll come out and be like, um, Tommaso Ciampa should have been a world champion, 3 times over by now. But then it flipped the narrative. I'm like, yeah, him and Gargano can go in the ring. That's not debatable. But I don't go out my way be like, oh, I got to watch this Gargano match off of this 2.5 or 3 hour show this week.
Right.
Just don't. You spoke to something about like, and I've always felt this way. Narrative's just different between NXT and the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
Who some of those guys are in the NXT? They the big men on campus, and then they um, come to the main roster and realize, or it shows that they just not those guys. Some of those gimmicks are just really not going to translate to the main roster. A lot of those guys can go. A lot of them are good hands, but they don't. They're not must see TV. It comes off that way in NXT, but look what's in NXT. So all that fakeness, it's predetermined, bro. All that stuff that they do. You want to talk about fake? Go in there with Gunther, and you let's see how many times you use that word after match with him.
I don't want Tommaso Ciampa in TNA like at all.
Yeah,
I listen. TNA needs some steady workers, but we already
yeah,
got a few guys that can go in the ring that just aren't that interesting as personalities. We have some, right? We have Eric Young. I don't need another dude who's not a character who can go in the ring. If this was 2005, okay, go get him.
yeah.
Because you had Kevin Nash, you had Rhino, you had Jeff Jarrett, you had Raven, you had a certain style, and you didn't have a lot of the best, workers to pull from. This is not 2005 anymore. This is not 2006. If you can't work at a certain degree anymore, you're not brought in unless you have a personality. And I don't think Tommaso Ciampa is such a great worker that you got to bring him in at the cost of somebody else. So like I don't want to see any of that
Yeah,
personally.
I mean, I'm more favorable on this guy than Chad is, but look how much work Mustafa has had to put in coming out of WWE.
Hmm. I think
You
he's done a
understand
great
that? Like,
job
yeah,
too.
yeah. I think he's done a fantastic job, and he's become one of their MVPs to me. And they re-signed him as a result of that, and he deserves that. But look how much work he's had to put in coming out of WWE, doing all that stuff on the Indies, um, doing stuff online, and then the amount of stuff that he's done in TNA. Like that's taken a while. He's been consistent with it, and the matches are backed up. But it takes a while to get in that groove outside of just being known as the guy who can do a 450 or what have you. Ricochet, the same thing in AEW. So that thing a lot of times get lost in translation with some of these flat scans on the internet because they just rather be loud and presumably right than actually getting down to the nuts and bolts of it. So TNA, you talk about this all the time. They actually got guys that they can do stuff with. You talk about Warner, uh, and some other guys. All they just got to do is tweak them in a way, put them in certain spots. That's why I think the segment with the system works so well because it puts Bronson and Cedric in something without trying to make them the main guys, but it keeps them interesting.
Sometimes you need to shake things up, and I think with Cedric, that's exactly what's going. Because everyone thought he was going to join the what are they called in AEW? The Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah,
Everyone thought he was going to join AEW. They thought he was going to join up with, and that would have been so easy for him to do, assuming he had a
yeah,
contract offer. Here now he's doing something different, teaming up with different guys, and he's getting a new kind of presentation, and I think that's going to help him. Mance Warner needs to be booked better. That's a fucking fact. Um, Jason Hotch can go. John Skyler, even though he looks like a bloated Smurf, he can go. Ryan Nemeth may be a very unlikable person. He can go. He's not the best, but like he's the bare minimum of what we should be expecting out of workers at this point. So like there's a lot of guys you can just go with, and a lot of them are gonna have to be kind of put to the forefront because Feast or Fired also happened this past week. And historically, Feast or Fired has always included somebody that they either A, did not resign, B, wanted to leave, or C, wanted to do a change up with the character. One person won it, technically speaking. The first person that ever won it was Christopher Daniels. I don't know if you remember that. He won it in like 2007 or 2008, and he got fired.
Beast of Fire.
Yeah,
Oh
Daniels,
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
what ended up
Is that
happening
how?
was
Yeah,
after he got fired, quote unquote, um, um, he came back as
Curry Man, right?
Curry Man.
Yeah, yeah.
So funny enough, so Senshi Loki, whatever you want to call him, he wins the original briefcase. But on the December 6th episode of Impact, Daniels defeats Senshi and Elite Skipper. No, I'm sorry. He defeats Senshi with Elite Skipper because they're a member of Triple X at the time to take the briefcase, and then he gets fired. Uh, then in one of the top 10 greatest segments in TNA history, Curryman gets the pink slip. And Curryman was played by Christopher Daniels. Curryman was Daniels' Japanese character when he would travel overseas because he was a comedy character. He ended up getting the briefcase, and when he got it, he's like, "Fire championship! I win fire championship!" Like, no, you're fired. And then like he gets escorted out by security, and he's like, "Lauren, Lauren, I love you." And as I forget what her name was. It's like Lauren something or other. And like he's getting hauled out by security, and they cut to like this like in memoriam package for Curry Man, where you see all of his notes for the year, and then it's like 2008 to 2008 Curry Man, like we barely knew you or something like that. Hilarious. The next one was in 2009, and it went to Bashir. I don't remember if he was let go or if he wanted to leave. He may have been the only wrestler that was actually fired from the company. Now, granted, he wasn't actually like they didn't go, "Hey, we're gonna fire whoever wins this briefcase." They told him like, "Hey, we're letting you go, and this is how we want you to leave things." And like that's fine. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can't find. All right, so Davari would say he originally signed a 2-year extension with the understanding that Jeff Jarrett would be his boss, but after Jarrett stepped down a month later, he could not see eye to eye with the new management and asked for his release. So he was let go from his contract via the Feaster fired. We got Chavo Guerrero in 2013, so about a 4-year layoff. Chavo did not re-sign with the company and was let go. Next one up was 2015. It was Pink Slip was held by Velvet Sky, but it was actually Robbie E. He won the briefcase and then made Velvet Sky open it because Velvet Sky was leaving the company. Same thing with Grado in 2016. Let's see. Grado was not fired though in kayfabe. That's right. Okay, so Grado stuck around. Grado got it in 2016, but because they believe Eli Drake switched things around, they gave him a chance to win it back, so he stuck around. EC3 won it in 2018, but he was heading to the WWE. Yu Amura won it in 2023, but he was heading back to New Japan. And then, of course, Eric Young. Now, I don't know if this is legit. You want some minor spoilers for Thursday? Potential.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, so we've all expected Steve Macklin to get the pink slip in the Peace or Fire match because we believe that Steve Macklin has not renewed his contract with TNA. This is simply what is being shown on Wikipedia right now. So, and there's no sources, there's no links. So, like, take it with a grain of salt because who's to say? And there's. Looks like there's spoilers from 411. Let's confirm these actually exist. No, this is not from 20. This one's from 2016, not 2020. That makes sense. It's retrieved on. Okay. So this may not be accurate, but according to the Wikipedia, let's say it is accurate. We know for a fact that Eddie has gotten the TNA World Championship briefcase because the audio fell into last episode. So the audio that they recorded for last week came back around. Apparently, Trey Miguel gets the TNA International Championship briefcase, and Steve Macklin gets the X Division Championship match, with Eric Young getting the apparently fired briefcase, or pink slip, if you will. I don't know if that's actually going to be how things go. I've seen no spoilers for anything. I didn't think they. I was under the impression that they were filming another live edition, or maybe they filmed it on Saturday. I don't know. Let's see. If that stands the way it does, with Eric Young getting written off, probably going into the back as a producer full time. Is that something that you would like to see with Macklin entering the X division, Miguel going to the international, and Eddie getting the world title?
I just get all the titles home. It's Eddie world title, Miguel international title. It fixed because we've been there, done that with him as X Division champion. And I loved him as X Division champion. I thought that was a great thing that he got to do because it was such a bummer the first time of him coming off of trying to make a move and then it not being made and him having to come back the first time. I thought he had a hell of a run, particularly as a heel. I know that wasn't one of your favorite instances, but I dug it just because that kid in the ring is second to none. But and then Macklin in the X division. That's interesting. If they're not gonna move him towards the world title, and we've seen kind of ho hummed him a little bit around with the international of it all, that could be like the fresh coat of paint that he could a fresh direction that he could use because we know it's not about weight limits, about no limits. So I don't mind it, but I'll prefer if we just get all the titles home, and we only missing one right now on somebody who, like you said, I don't even know if he got the love. You saying he don't get TNA, NXT. He's just there. He's just somebody that's with Santino's daughter, and I'm pretty sure the two of them walk in the room, nobody's looking at him. So
I agree. So they are not filming another new episode this week. I don't know if they filmed it after the live episode or if they did it that Friday or Saturday. So they have recorded the next episode of Impact. So this could have been done by someone who saw this the tapings. I think this is 65% probably what to expect. But again, I've seen no spoilers, heard no one talking about it, so like I don't know. That being said, if this is the way it goes, Leon Slater's held this belt for almost 200 days. I think Steve Macklin would be
mm,
the perfect guy to take the belt off of him.
mm,
I think because Macklin provides such a unique challenge physically than what Leon has been used to. Yeah, he faced,
yes,
but Moose is an athletic big, right? If we're talking NBA terms, he's a Zion Williamson, right? He's a stretch four who can pull up. He's Dirk Nowitzki. He could hit you from everywhere, and he's a big. Macklin is compact fullback. Like if Moose is a power forward in the NBA with a jump shot, Steve Macklin's a fullback. When Moose hits you, it's
yeah,
hard, but he's also quick. Speed to him,
hmm,
so he can do some different things. Macklin is not quick, but Macklin relies on physicality more than Moose does. Moose likes the clothesline,
yeah,
the pump kick, the spear. Macklin will drag his elbow across your eye. Like he'll smash his forearm into your head, 20 times. Five will give you four. Your five won't be nearly as impactful as his four. So it gives you a whole new type of story with Macklin and Leon Slater, and it would be such a great ending to have where Macklin beats Slater. And then Slater has to come back, over the course of a few months, train, compete, face off with some of the guys, and then come back to get the belt back from Macklin. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that'd be a great chase. And also, Macklin would
No,
be
I
a
mean,
great member if he turns heel again. Would be a great member for the system. Either way.
yeah, I mean, Macklin works great in that role. Again, like I said, he's become one of the Iron Men in terms of being able to rely on him and put him in any situation, anywhere on the card, and he delivers a banger. And he's been through wars in Impact, so he's more than battle tested and battle ready. And Leon benefits from having ran into a hell of a man in Obafemi.
Mm-hmm.
So used to some pressure in itself. But like you said, I think that's a great test for him. And one that if he gets knocked off is 100% believable because while he got overcame the Moose. Macklin is, like I said, he's been to war when he's facing the championship, when he's had the championship. Um, and we've seen how brutal he can be as a heel. So I think that'll be a great way to turn him back, get him back to form. And yeah, I think, like you said, Slater needs something to chew on. We know what he can do in the ring, but he needs something to chew on, and Macklin can give him that. We saw what he did with Alexander and others. And that was someone to me some of his best stuff because he was stalking that man for months. And I think he could be somebody that really gets in Slater's head. And like you said, make him kind of have to do that Santana thing and kind of having to crawl back. So yeah, hopefully that's the direction they go. Um, I'm gonna remain hopefully optimistic in that regard.
We also got a BDE segment with Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth. I'm excited about BDE. I think he's a great prospect. I'm curious to see if we could find him a tag team partner. I think that would be a lot of fun. Um, and I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think either with BDE or Leon Slater, who would be a great manager for them? Assuming travel is a possibility. Chris Bay.
We got
Bring in Chris Bay as a manager.
obviously you're not talking about in ring. You're talking about like a mentor type of
Yeah,
deal.
like bring it, like get back out there. I know they're paying out the contract, but like if you bring him in, especially with like someone with BDE, I think like that would be a great mentorship role. Here's the thing though, from everything I've been hearing about his recovery and rehab, and all that, he's physically still struggling. So I don't know if getting to the show would be easy for him because if it's
Yeah,
not, then why do it? Part of this is to get him back on television, to get him back, in the zeitgeist, and maybe give him a little bit more money in his pocket. But if the differential isn't palatable, if he's not able to do this without causing himself a lot of anxieties and pains, then there's no point in it. But if he can, I think that'd be fantastic.
yeah.
Although
I mean,
if
it
that
can.
doesn't work, maybe Rick Swan.
Yeah, I mean that's a good backup. But I like the first one because it keeps him in the loop. Um, keeps him a part of the family. Like you said, maybe he can't do it um every week, but kind of keeping him in the ear. Somebody like BDE, and kind of yeah, you could. I mean, it kind of comes off seamless because you could just work everything that's really happening into the thing. Like I can't do it, but you can. Um, just you could just really let him vent um about everything going on with him as his mentor, and kind of just let him. You could really get some real good stuff off this. And I just wish I just wish we had some better people behind the scenes to kind of have this kind of awareness. But yeah, that'd be great. Or like you said, Swan, who was also somebody who could, he's been X Division World, you name it, he's done it. So he could also be a perfect person to do that. And specifically coming off of him just didn't he just get out of a heel faction with Francis
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, and kind of allowing himself to kind of be, because he should be, you know, be they big coach, a big bro in the sense that he kind of let himself get little bro in that. So I think that'll be great for him coming off that. Yeah, but some guidance would be great. 'Cause him picking the bone with Nick is not gonna finish well.
No. I think we're about to get Casey Navarro back too, and I think that's kind of why they're doing what they're doing with Rich Swann and AJ Francis. So
Nice.
the Elena Black promo was terrible. She's awful. I don't know why they brought her
Jesus,
in.
Jesus Christ, bro, that was hard to watch.
I guess the OnlyFans money ain't what it's supposed to be for her. Then we go from that
I can see
bad
how.
segment to the one with the SWAT, the SU-8. I don't know what her whole shit's supposed to be, but it's terrible. Fucking
She's supposed to be.
Sonya
She's supposed
Deville.
to be the suit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
she's
it's
supposed to be
but
the
it's not an
suit.
I. It's an A. I
Yeah,
don't know who designed that, but that's fucking stupid. The SWAT. Jeff Hardy and Mustafa had a good main event. I think there's a lot of value still in Jeff Hardy as a singles wrestler. I think we should run him a little bit as Will the Wisp. I think that could be a real good thing. But I'm curious to see what the end game goal here is with the Righteous and the Hardys. Matt and Jeff can't keep going like they're going, and I think Matt going broken again and Jeff going to Willow and then separating and being solo stars could be beneficial to the brand. But also, there's a lot of intrigue in the nostalgia runner they got. They got their old, they got their old WWE theme, which giving TNA got the rights to it. Their theme's been kind of unclaimed by the WWE for years. I think at one point they were using it on, ironically enough, an AMC wrestling documentary that was not WWE before WWE started working with them. I think it was during like the Hulk Hogan. Remember when Hulk Hogan joined TNA and then had that AMC documentary?
yeah,
I think they used Jeff Hardy's theme for that doc in 2010.
mm,
So,
yeah.
so
I dig that. Yeah, keep going out.
So, with that being said, let's move on and talk a little bit about a decade of dominance by Rosemary. It was announced this week that now she's been in the company for 10 years. She's had some of the biggest moments. She was part of Decay, which was Mrs. last real big run for the company. She had a great feud with Jade when she was still relevant, just some, you know, former star called Mitchin. I don't even know what she's doing anymore. Her run in the WWE was disastrous. She went from being the good side to the coin that was Rosemary, red versus blue, and she threw it all away for a run in WWE. But Rosemary did stuff with her. Then she did the stuff with Taryn Terrell where they were a tag team and rivals. That was a hell of a fucking feud. The stuff with Allie and then Sue Young was fantastic. I forgot that she almost married Johnny Bravo. And then didn't she try to kill him?
Yeah, man, that was and this was this to go. This is a nod to you. That was doing those great. What was that? Uh, Impact. In your house, not in your house. What was that when they all went to this house?
The
Man,
Wrestle House.
there it is, Russell House, which is doesn't didn't get enough credit for how entertaining it was. Um, they threaded that storyline really great. Rosemary, some of Rosemary's best character stuff, because she was they shot stuff at the bar, they shot stuff just all around. It was fantastic. I
The
think she did
shirtless
kill
Chris
him.
Sabin. The
Yeah,
shirtless Chris Sabin was one of
yeah,
my favorite.
great, fantastic. They did a whole murder plot, which I think ended up getting tied to Taya, which is how they got her out the show.
I think so.
Yeah.
Then she would
So
reform Decay with the Beast Mortos. Havoc would be kind of a loose addition to the group, and they won the Knockout Tag titles. Then Taya came back, and they did stuff with her again. Rosemary was a part. I think it was the first ever women's Ultimate X match. She was involved with that. Won the belts again with Taya. So like she's done so much stuff in this company. She hasn't really been used that much over the last 6 months or so. Her last big feud being with Xia Brookside, where she put her over in a feud that I can safely say proved that Xia should not be a single star. Um, if you can't get a good match out with Rosemary, Rosemary's not the Shawn Michaels of women, right? She's still very good. And if you can't get a good match out of her and you can't get a good promo from her or against her, I don't think you're where you need to be. I think there's so much more value in Rosemary. I know she's probably close to or is 40, but I think her character is timeless, and as long as her knees are still holding up, I think you could get a real big move going, especially with Lee, and maybe even get the belt back on Rosemary with the right set. I hope we haven't seen the last of Rosemary on TNA television because, again, we haven't really seen her that much here in a little bit. But I'm hoping
Yeah,
that
man.
the next time we get her, it's in a significant way.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with. Look, if it's anybody, you should be able to kind of just let do their own thing, given the right provisions and time and scenarios. It's her. You know, she's certainly one of their most loyal players. Giving the company some of its greatest moments, whether she's been by herself or certainly all those epic moments with Decay, the original Decay. Um, you know, she does everything they ask her to do. Even in scenarios where she should probably come out the better of it. Um, and you can just put her anywhere and she works, whether she's wrestling or she has a segment, whether she's just doing the stuff with the demon realm, you name it, she can do it. You put her. Speaking of Willow the Wisp, what they should do with the Hard is let them get out everything that you can before they, the Twilight, and they clearly, I guess, want to retire in WWE. I'd I'd ring the mop and let them get out everything. Bring back Willow. Let Matt do some stuff on his own. I'd put Willow and Rosemary together for some wacky hijinks.
It'd be fun.
I think it'll be a missed opportunity if you don't do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about somebody that should get back to form right now in WWE, and this is mostly on her. We're seeing Natty have a legitimate resurgence because of all the work that she's had to put in away from the company. Um, she's really rebuilt herself up, and if anybody I think that deserves to have that same type of energy in TNA, it's her. And that's just my take on. I'm right there with you. She should have a significant thing. She is definitely somebody that should come back and get the title. And let her get a final run. I don't know what she's looking at in terms of how much longer she wants to keep wrestling, but I think she's shown a lot of loyalty to the company, and I think that should be repaid with giving her, a hell of a final run if that's what she's looking to do. So
Should be interesting. At 42, I think she still has something left in the tank. Uh, she may not be the only, I don't want to say iconic, but noteworthy knockout to be coming
yeah,
back into the fold. We're seeing this drama play out between three former knockout champions, Ash by Elegance, Taryn Terrell, and Brooke Tessmacher. Now, this kind of all stems from the fact that Ash, and to be very clear, Ash said that she couldn't wrestle anymore, vacated the title. The rumor was that she was forced to retire due to health issues. I think she even said she had to retire. There was no, inclination that she would be coming back. And then, of course, on Thursday, she attacked Li Ying Li and Zach side after feigning trying to help Li Ying Li. Because the Elegance brand, was it Ying Li, or was it Indie? Forget. It wasn't a great segment. It was one of the worst ones. But the girls decided to go off book and attack somebody, and Ash's like, no, 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 this isn't what we do. We have to do better. And then she turned around and attacked whoever. It was like, oh, okay, that's cute. And then she's like now back, and apparently she's gonna be gunning for Li Ying Li's knockout side title. So like that's whatever. This prompted Taryn Terrell to tweet out, "I always support the knockouts, but as someone whose career was cut short, I have lost all respect for Ash by attacking this." As a former KO champ, I am so proud of the work and will always and will be blah blah blah. Brooke Tessmacher then commented on, and then Ash commented on them. So I don't know if Taryn Terrell actually had to retire due to injury, but yeah, I'm looking it up too. But I think there's a possibility that maybe Taryn Terrell does come back, maybe, and do something with Ash alongside Brooke. I think these were, think about like the sports landscape so much. Taryn and Brooke were supposed to be the knockouts that carried them forward. Abigail and Kong and beautiful people, but for some reason, Taryn kind of came and left. Brooke didn't last too much longer, and now they're kind of in this space where it feels like they were not necessarily busts, but they didn't live up to the lofty expectations and potential we thought they could have. Do you think there's a chance that we get one or both of these women back in the ring anytime soon?
I think there's a possibility because I also think a large part of it was they went off and became moms,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a mother, should I say, and that's that has its own life path, and you really have to be committed to that if you want to do it a certain way. Um, I don't know where they are relationship wise. I would imagine Terrence's still married, but you never know. I don't know what's going on with Brooke. I haven't checked in with either of them in a while. I haven't heard their names in so long. Certainly, it's not associated with wrestling. So, um, but I think, and this is me just presuming, obviously, that they also had in the back of their mind that they had some real key moments in the company, coming from places as characters where that I don't think anybody saw it coming. Just how far they got. I mean, they literally was playing Brooke as wrestling Miss Tessmacher, the wrestling version of Miss Tessmacher, and for the most part, I would imagine Taryn was just supposed to be eye candy. So both in similar regards, and then with the places they got to actually being um compelling characters and good in the ring. I don't think anybody saw that coming, but like you said, they really had some fantastic moments, and probably were supposed to be the two um leading the ship in the knockouts division for a while, and that didn't necessarily pan out, and I think they both know that. So I think in a lot of ways, you kind of keep that itch, and I know Brooke usually stays in great shape, and Taryn, as a former stunt performer, I would imagine she's not too far off either. So I would imagine they still got that itch, and if they could come back in and do some good stuff, I'll be down for it. Yeah, I just think they need it. I mean, we've been talking about they really need it on all sides, but specifically with the knockouts, and we don't have nothing personal against any of the women that we have not necessarily been pom poms about, but it becomes obvious. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, you talk about the best wrestler in the division. You talking Tesla, but we know that's a no go. It's a no go. You talking about a dead crowd? Bring her out there. You gonna get them live up. You gonna get them rattled. So it's this seemed like a real good decision. Hopefully, like you said, it's not just fodder for the Twitter streets and they bring it to screen, but it works. And you talk about that, adding that on top of Rosemary coming back, they could do some real good stuff. But again, not me and you booking it, bro. It's us talking about quality decisions that they need to go in.
I think Taryn and Brooke coming back as a tag for a short spell, plus Rosemary's reintroduction to the roster, hopefully. I think you'd get a nice little boost in talent and notoriety with knockouts, and I think it gives Ash and what's her name, Heather by Elegance, an opportunity to really showcase their worth on the roster beyond what we've already gotten them. Plus, I think it could help elevate their notoriety and their name. So I think it's the way to go. We'll see if it's happening. Let's see, however, to the next conversation because it's one that I think also pertains to a situation, a major name possibly coming back into the fold. Now, I think if we're talking about this in all sincerity, I think it's a 20% chance this happens. I don't think it's likely. I think it's possible, and I think that needs to be stated clearly and plainly. I think it's possible, not likely. It sounds like Styles is not going to resign WWE. He's making it almost abundantly clear that he's not retiring from wrestling. He's retiring from WWE. He's already gone out and said that there are rooms full of guys that he wants to have a match with before he hangs up for good. And I think this idea of him retiring by 50 is going to be something that he puts about, especially if he's happy where he goes. So, obviously, he's probably wrapping up come Royal Rumble because the hot shotting Styles Gunther stuff. A lot of people thought this was going to be, and I want to be abundantly clear. I don't mean like, oh yeah, no, a lot of people want it. I mean, in September, there were talks of Styles and Gunther being on WrestleMania, but I think that was when they expected Styles to resign. Now there's a lot of aggregate accounts, a lot of fakers, a lot of engagement farmers who are like Styles is retiring. There's no reason to believe that. I don't think there's a reason to believe that whatsoever. I think Styles is leaving after the Royal Rumble, and he could pop up in AEW. Him and Kenny Omega, they're both in their 40s. I still think would be a great match. Because Styles can still go. He's added weight. He's getting less injured. And there's still a part of him that, is still driven. And he's already said he wants to be a world champion again. He said that this week. He said this week. Despite all the retirement rumors and all, he said this week he wants to wrestle other guys. He wants to be a world champion. And he said that if he loses, he'll retire from the WWE. Now, he could win. Oh, I know everyone is expecting his loss at the Royal Rumble to be a foregone conclusion. He could win. He will. Every time he may be going to WrestleMania to face off with CM Punk for the world title. For all we know, that's a real possibility. I don't think it's happening. There's a lot of people who are becoming disenfranchised. And far more likely, the WWE no longer wants him on the roster. And I know that's going to sound to you. But the WWE is owned by a major company that cares about one thing and one thing. They told Arthur, we no longer want you. And the blowback was so bad, they were because they were worried about the bottom line. They don't want Ron Killings. I don't think they want AJ Styles. I think they look at that 48, 49-year-old, and they're like, you make too much money for what you're worth. This is what the UFC does. The UFC will look at guys and be like, you're not worth it, and we'll cut them. That's what happens when you're owned by a private equity firm. WWE, they are owned by a private equity firm. The old school belief in how things used to be under Vince McMahon goes out the window. What happened then is not the status quo anymore. There is no on this roster they will not cut or throw out the window if they think it'll help them raise their bottom line. If they can make more money getting rid of a guy because they're not paying as much money into them, they will. Roman, they don't care. Their only worry is making money. And I would not be surprised if Styles is not retiring, but that the WWE is not re-upping him. He may not be moving merch like he used to, if he ever did. He may not be a guy that the executives feel that strongly about anymore. They might see his age and be like, we're done. We're done here. And he may be told, we're not re-signing you, you're done after the Royal Rumble. And if that's the case, that's the case. But, we'll find out here, in a matter of days, because the Royal Rumble, right, is this weekend.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
an
think
interesting
Styles
thing
is
with
leaving?
Styles. Don't know. Don't know. It's real interesting with Styles because I think, I mean, look, he's a certified legend. Um, really three times over, Hall of Famer, certified legend, certified Hall of Famer three times over. He's had legitimately three Hall of Fame careers in three different companies. Um, and I mean, he's still in fantastic shape. I know he said he kind of wants to, spend time with family because I would imagine. I mean, what he's got, what, three boys and a girl.
Something
You
like
know,
that.
I would imagine that the house is getting empty because kids are getting older, getting out. And I think his daughter is his youngest, so I would imagine he wants to, you know, solidify those bonds before everybody's up out of that thing. So I imagine that. Think, but also, like you said, if you're talking about being a world champion again, I don't necessarily know if that happens in WWE. I don't necessarily say they won't put him in a spot to um, fight for it, but it was a hell of a thing than putting it on Punk. So I don't know if they'll do that. I don't know if he wins the Rumble, but yeah, I mean he could go back to TNA. You just don't know. You just don't know where his head's at. But all signs are pointing to the time being up in some form of fashion. So um, though I would it will be funny if and ironically they end up giving him a better outgoing than they did Cena. And they had that plan for months, and I think what Styles talked about it being his final year in the midst of that whole deal.
Hmm.
So interesting. I say, but it will be cool to see him close out things in TNA as a world champion, specifically coming off his last full run and how that ended. So, you know, but it'll also be weird because, again, at this point, going from WWE to TNA is kind of like going down the street and to the left a little bit. But, yeah.
So here's the thing: if Styles does want another one, it's likely not going to happen in AEW. They have a pretty packed main event scene with Swerve, with Hangman, with Joe, with Omega, and then with guys right underneath, ready to break through, like a Kyle Fletcher, uh, Darby Allin. I think if you're Styles, you want to be on national television, you want a big role in the company, and you want to win another world title, it's TNA. And I think if you show up in TNA in February or March, and then you start building the Slammiversary, Mike Santana, AJ Styles, Santana's got to lose that belt eventually, right? You want him to have a nice long run. How long do you need him to have it for? I think 6 months is a nice minimum. Like if he loses after 6 months and he loses it to Styles while beating Eddie and Macklin and Moose and whomever else you want to throw at him, I don't think anyone's going to go, oh, they ruined Macklin or they ruined Santana. I don't think anyone's going to say that. I think they're going to be like, okay. Because then I think what you do is you then turn around and depending on when Santana's contract is up, let's say he's sticking around, right? Let's say he's pulling the Moose, and then you just take Santana into Bound for Glory where you have him face off with AJ Styles for the title, and you have him win it back. Like if Santana's really the guy you want to roll with going forward for good, that's what you do. If Santana decides to leave though, then maybe you give Styles a longer run. I don't think anyone would complain about that. And then you could have him lose it to someone young like a Leon Slater or a Jason Hodge, depending on what they do with him. There's a lot of potential here with Styles maximizing the end of his career to the best of his abilities with TNA. But that's going to be real dependent on what he values because if he wants the biggest payday, should he leave the WWE? Should he retire or not retire, I should say? He goes to AEW. They can offer him more money. They could probably offer him more money than what the WWE's offering. Or if he wants to be maximized and be the focus of a product more than anything else, I think he goes to TNA. And I think maybe what you do is you could even have him beat Macklin for the X Division title, assuming Macklin beats Leon Slater, assuming Macklin has the X Division title briefcase. A lot of assumptions here. You could have Styles beat Macklin for it, and then go in and lose it to whomever, and have Styles then go and chase the world title. Maybe you build up Styles to take on Santana Bound for Glory, and have Styles, do an X Division match at Slammiversary with Leon Slater. There's a lot of things you can do with him where he's the focal point of a lot of stories in your company. And I think if you're TNA, you back up the Brinks truck and you're like, hey, we can't give you $3 million a year like AEW can, but here's what we can offer. Plus, we can make you the focal point of the television show. Plus, we guarantee you'll only ever have to work every other weekend, what have you. That might be enough to get him. It really he's a rich man. Styles is a rich man, and I know he had he was offered a pay cut in TNA the first time around. I know for a fact he became wealthy in TNA, and I know when he was set to return in TNA in what was it 2016, almost a decade ago. The money that was being offered was not peanuts, because if you remember, it was supposed to be Carl Anderson's Doc Gallows and AJ Styles joining TNA in I think it was 2016, but they go to the WWE instead. In fact, they already had the deal in place, for what I remember, and there was a whole hullabaloo about this, where a lot of people were pissed off that they felt that WWE tampered with the negotiations, that they felt that Styles was disingenuous and only used TNA to try to get a bigger deal with the WWE. But he was almost set to return a decade ago. And now I'll say this: I think the first couple years of Styles in WWE was worth signing. His feud with John Cena was iconic. His run as the face that ran the place on SmackDown was perfect. He had a great match with Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson humiliated him for being a flat earther. Just perfect. But since like 2020, 2021, he hasn't done shit. I think he won an Intercontinental title at one point. He wrestled Shane McMahon at WrestleMania, which actually wasn't too bad. But like he's been, just spinning his gears. He never really did anything big with Finn Balor. His last big thing that he did, like his Hope of Femi shit, tapered off. His run with Dragon Lee was fine, but Dragon Lee had been so marginalized and shoved down the pecking order so badly, it didn't feel like anything important. It felt like two guys just being slammed together. So I think he wants to have now again this is just assumption on my part. I think he wants to have a big type of final set of years in a company, and I think coming to TNA will allow him to do that. While if he goes to AEW, he may not get the same pomp and circumstance long term. And if he stays in WWE, it's gonna be more of the same. So I think this is the best option for him. But again, we'll see what ends up happening. Ultimately,
Yeah,
where do you want him to land?
it'll be cool to see him. I mean, selfishly, and look, he's the reason why I started watching TNA. So selfishly and wholeheartedly, from a biased perspective, I want him to finish up in TNA proper. That's why I think the world got introduced to him in the first place in a lot of ways. Um, but like you said, we don't know. Maybe AEW is an option. He got options. Um, but selfishly, I want him to close out things and the face where he actually ran the place first, which was TNA.
That would be preferred. I know that's what I would want, but we'll see what ends up happening for him here in a little bit. We'll find out Sunday, ultimately what his direction is. Because if he beats Gunther at Royal Rumble, all bets are off. Like, will he go to WrestleMania to headline for the title? What'll happen? We don't know. What we don't know. Also, apparently, Steph Delander's medically cleared to return to wrestling, but she just needs to go through the proper return protocols. So she could be a few months out from returning from her broken neck. So that should be great. Um, with all that being said, any final thoughts?
Um, I mean, Great show this week. I mean, we briefly touched on it, but it's good to. I know again, it's the second time out, then second time back, but it is cool to see that Trey did come back. And it did his thing. It's look, it's always disappointing. I personally don't be wanting to see him leave, but I understand. Certainly wanted to leave with his brothers and do that thing, but things went the way that they did. But I am appreciative that he can always come back home in a way to the TNA. I'm glad both sides always seem to be in agreement on that. So that was cool to see. And yeah, I'm just fingers crossed. We do these shows on Tuesdays, which is ahead of the Impact. I hope we the energy that we saw on this last Impact goes into this Thursday's Impact. Because what you don't want to do is them fall into that same usual TNA trap of taking one step forward and 2 to 3 steps back. So hopefully they carry on that energy and we get some good stuff um, coming off the show. I don't know how far ahead you've read, but if you blind booking and you coming off of last week, you kick this show off this week with the system.
I think so. I think
Yeah,
that's the logical place to go. You could also
yeah,
start things off. Now, in the years past, they've done things like all the briefcases at once for Feast or Fired, or they've done it throughout the show as well, and they did it one at a time. I don't know which one they're gonna do. I think I'd prefer it to be one at a time. I think that could be, I think that could be real, real intriguing, right? Just expands
yeah. I
the
mean,
show a little bit.
yeah. So would you? Because there's always interesting ways that they've done this too. Real quick, how would you do it, and who would you have involved in the reveal? Would it be for the comedic effect Santino, or would you? I mean, obviously, I would imagine he's going to be involved because that's kind of how that works. Although, along with him comes Sweet. That's what we're going to call it, I guess. Um, or maybe not. But how would you do the reveal? Would you have him just come out and do it in front of the crowd?
No, I think what they're gonna doing is how I would want them to do it. They're gonna do it in the back because the last few times
Yeah,
they've done it at their little table booth situation. I think they'll do it this time, and I think they'll do it one at a time. And Santino will likely be the one who like introduces it and what have you. That's how I would do it, and I think that's how they'll end up
yeah,
doing it. So it looks like
gotcha.
things should be pretty interesting. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up there. We'll be back on next week's show, Tuesday. Until then, be sure to look out for us at realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCRP.com. We're on Twitter at NERDCRP. Marcus, you're on Twitter at Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. What are you guys talking about this week on The True Penny Show?
This week on the True Penny Show, you can catch up to stuff talking about Dave Meltzer 5-star matches and the whole thing of the like. Also, you got the beginner's guide that it's a long running staple of True Penny Show talking about Osaka Pro. And this weekend, all things being equal, and hopefully these utilities hold up because apparently this damn storm supposed to get colder down here anyway. But we'll be talking some Marigold coming off of Wrestle Universe, so be on the lookout for that stuff.
You can also find us on the YouTube, youtube.com/Wrestling Underground, and twitch.tv at Wrestling Underground. We will return to Twitch eventually. I'm in no rush. I like doing the recordings. They're easier to do, and we don't take up as much bandwidth. Fun fact, if you're a fan of Cartoon Network, they're still around. President's Day, February 16th at 10 a.m., they're going to be doing a marathon of a pup named Scooby Doo, airing on the channel for the first
Hey,
time since 2009, 17 years.
hey,
I love that
nice.
stupid fucking cartoon.
Love it. Great, one of the great theme songs too. Also, putting people up on game. For us, for the '90s kids, Chad, tell them what's on Tubi. Tell them what that's jumped up on Tubi.
Big Bad Beetleborgs. It's they're airing now on Tubi. So if you want to get Tubi, go ahead and do it. You can check out one of the best. What are they called? Sentais. Isn't that what Super Sentai was? Power Rangers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it was
Super Sentai spinoff. Yeah,
yeah, it was a Sentai show. It wasn't the Super Sentais, which was the Power Rangers, but it was a similar vein. So definitely check that out if you're a fan of stuff because it's a lot of fun, and I think people will really enjoy it, especially with the campy monsters of it all. I
yeah.
really that was my favorite part of the show. I didn't need the superheroes. I liked the monsters. A lot of fun. All right. With that being said, we're done. We'll see you guys next week for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. For Marcus, I'm Chad. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, we'll be back next week to finally do the Wrestling Awards show. So take us home.
Yes, sir. Good night. Me.